So most diets create some form of restriction. They make you restrict something or stop doing something. And because of that thing you have to stop doing, it forces your calorie intake to be adjusted. So as an example, low carb dieting removes a whole food group. So you may not eat carbs, you can only eat proteins and fats. And so what happens is your body, you create a calorie deficit and then you start losing body fat. So it's a method that they follow, that you restrict something, but look what happened. You ended up in a calorie deficit, so you lost. Let's use another example of, let's say you cut out fat. Again, you're cutting out an entire macronutrient, and you end up also affecting the amount of calories going into your body. So essentially you are getting yourself into a calorie deficit and then you start losing. Can you see what's happening here? The next type of diet, you restrict this thing, and what happens is, because you restrict that thing, you end up dropping your calories, so you end up being in a calorie deficit, so you lose body fat. Let's use the concept of clean eating, whatever that specifically means. Clean eating, just raw foods, meaning plant, maybe a little bit of animal products, but no processed foods. Okay, usually these foods tend to be lower in calories. Can you see the pattern? Lower calorie foods, you fill yourself up on the lower calorie foods. Most of the time, most people, especially living in the Western culture, that it's not really the most enjoyable way to eat, like not using sauces and eating specifically raw all the time. I get it, and it is possible to eat like that, clean, but not for very long. So that's, again, because you're eating low calorie type foods, you end up being in a calorie deficit, so you end up losing weight. Can you understand how this works? Every one of them forces you to restrict something that puts you into a calorie deficit, and then by default, you lose body fat. So that's what they all have in common. They make you restrict something which puts you in a calorie deficit, which makes you get results. Do they work? Yes, of course they work, because they put you in a calorie deficit. Let me tell you a second thing that they all have in common that I have noticed over 20 years of being in this industry. They all make you, they're very rigid, and because of this rigidity, they are not sustainable long term. Have you heard of the concept of yo-yo dieting? Well, that's because a person follows one type of diet, they lose a certain amount of weight, then they can't follow it for the rest of their life. It's not sustainable. So what they end up doing is stopping that and going back to their old way of eating, gaining all the weight back. Then they find a new diet because, wow, they're advertising on this new diet's better than the one before, so they use this new diet, and they end up as well losing the weight and going, wow, this diet's amazing, until they realize I can't do this for the rest of my life, and they go back to the way they were eating before, and then what do? They gain the weight back. See the pattern? That's yo-yo dieting. So because it's too restrictive, I don't believe that diets work. I believe that diets can help you for a certain short period of time, but because of it's only a short period of time, I would say that diets do not work. And the best thing that a person can do is learn how to track calories, or they need to learn, or you need to learn, what amount of calories you need per day to survive. And then once you know that, you can make adjustments and basically decide what you want to do. If you know how many calories you need, you can decide to eat a little bit less if you want to get a little bit smaller or lose a bit of body fat. The other way around, if you want to gain weight, you can just start eating a little bit more than what you already know is a maintenance weight for you. So what can a person do to solve this problem of yo-yo dieting, or finally find a solution that creates a sustainable weight loss for them, fat loss, something that they can never need to stop? All right, and that's basically what I believe the most important thing of is in the diet or fat loss world is teaching people, equipping people with the understanding of how calorie balance works. I actually have a specific method. I call it the sweet spot method, that I use when I'm helping my clients achieve their dream body. And listen to this, right? If you can find how many calories you need, you don't need to worry about what type of diet, what type of food you need to eat, because as long as you know your calories, you can spend your calories on any food, because all food is broken down into a fuel source that our bodies use. All food. So whether you eat a donut or you ate some avocado, your body's going to pull the nutrients from those two things, and then inside your body it's going to be like, okay, I had this many grams of fat, this many grams of carbohydrates, and from that I've got this many calories. So the same thing with a donut, I've got this many grams of carbs, this many grams of fat, and from that I've got this many calories. So it essentially doesn't really matter what type of food you're eating, and this is what I've discovered over time. I myself do not follow a diet. I used to. I'm a WBFF pro. I've followed the most strict plans. I've done it all. But because of my knowledge of doing that and the way I do things now, I can teach this with confidence that people can get amazing results eating the foods that they love, all right, not giving up those foods, as long as you know what your calorie requirements are. And so we have this amazing system called the Sweet Spot Method to help you do that, to create this long-term sustainable nutrition for yourself. So anyway, so I thought I'd share with you the things that most diets have in common, and that is what? They all create a calorie deficit because of restricting something. But the common thing is that that thing that they make you restrict is so difficult to sustain forever that you stop doing it and then you gain the weight back. You yo-yo because your habits do not really change and they don't really teach you anything. And so my hope is that you use this message now to really start to understand that if you want to lose body fat, you need to understand how many calories you need first, number one thing. And once you do that, then you can choose how you want to eat. That's totally up to you. Have an awesome day. Speak soon. Ciao.